Chaplaincy is not a consolation prize for being a failed pastor. If you're new around here, my name is Leslie. I am taking you on my journey to becoming a chaplain. I'm making the types of videos that I wish I could have found on YouTube when I started this journey 2 years ago. So let's talk about the difference between a chaplain and a pastor. Because if you're a pastor, and Lord knows I love the local church. I am a member of a local church. I have been submitted for a long time. So I am a church fan. But let me say this, I shouldn't say but, right? I should say and. If you think you're going to slide from preaching on Sunday to holding hands in the ICU on Monday without training, baby, I got news for you, okay? So I got notes, y'all. Because y'all know my memory is shot. And I don't want to just ramble and say things. I want to make this video valuable. So when you see me looking down, it's because I'm looking at my bullet points. Okay, let's get started. So the first thing I want to say is that seminaries are pivoting. Because here's the truth. We all know that church attendance is down. When I think about my church and how much the attendance is down at the church I attend since 2020, it goes without saying that church attendance is down. And worse yet, some churches are even closing, right? So what does that mean for seminaries that are for profit? That means that people aren't willing to invest $20, $30, $40, $50, even $60,000 in getting an MDiv to go and work for a church that can't pay them. So now you're seeing seminaries popping up all over the place saying, oh, you can get an MDiv with a chaplaincy track. You can go into chaplaincy so you can still, be theological, you can still be pastoral, and make sure you get a steady paycheck. But that's not what this work is about at all. And definitely not the seminary that I went to. They were not training you to work in multi-faith, pluralistic environments. Yeah. At best, they might tell you, well, we're going to teach you how to work in an ecumenical environment, right? Well, everybody has some type of religion and maybe Abrahamic faith, but that is not what we're dealing with when we're walking into rooms. So the first thing I want you to think about is just because the syllabus at the seminary says chaplaincy, it may not be preparing you for this role. So that's number one. Number two, let's break down the difference between a pastor and a chaplain. I think I wrote down 5 points. I got 5 points for my preachers in the room. I got five movements that I'm going to move you through. But what are the differences? So let's lay it out. Number one, if you are a pastor, you don't get to bring your pulpit to the bedside. A chaplain isn't there to deliver a word. We are there to listen. Okay? And if you are a pastor who has a heart for the lost, and I pray if you're a pastor, you got a heart for the lost, you ain't going to be able to evangelize in the room. Now, we trust the Holy Spirit. The Holy Spirit can open doors and opportunities. It's actually something I pray for. But when I walk into a room, I don't walk into the room thinking I'm going to get a convert for Christ. Because inside of the hospital, prison, hospice, they have a nice little word for that. And it ain't called evangelism. It's called proselytizing. And you will lose your job. I'm doing it. So truthfully, you have to be someone who's skilled with listening, someone who can meet people where they are, even if they are not of your faith, okay? Number two, that takes me into point number two. You don't get to assume shared faith. In a church, we all assume that we have similar beliefs. We believe things similarly doctrinally. We have a common faith inside of a church. When you walk into a room, your congregation might include a Muslim, a Wiccan, an atheist, somebody who's spiritual but not religious. And I know some pastors would be like, that's sitting in the pews too. Yeah, but when they're sitting in the pews in your church, 9 times out of 10, they faking. When you meet somebody who's dying, all bets are off. All masks are off. They're going to show you who they really are. And so if that makes you uncomfortable, or you're not going to be able to provide spiritual care which is different from religious care, then what do? You better know how to you better know how to serve people without trying to convert them. That's point number 2. Point number 3, there is no power in this position. There's a difference between power and authority. And when you take CPE, because you will need to take CPE, even if you've been a pastor for 20 years, there's a whole didactic on the difference between power and authority. And there is no power in this position. So you are not the center of attention. Ain't nobody clapping for you. You're going to walk into rooms where no one knows who you are. And you're going to have to earn their trust moment by moment with your presence, not your platform. Don't nobody care about who sent you and who's your spiritual father, whose spiritual daughter you are. None of that means anything inside of hospital rooms. So I think there's assumed trust in congregations that do not exist in hospitals. Okay. Number 4, and this is probably the biggest difference between the two. You're going to need clinical skills, not just charisma. When I had my very first unit of CPE, one of the staff chaplains said to me, he was like, you know what? Folks ain't paying you to pray. So while praying is important, I'm a praying person, okay? Prayer is always going to be the backbone behind how I minister. His point is that you're going to need additional skills that go beyond praying and preaching in the hospital. We use frameworks, and you're going to need to be trained in those frameworks, like spiritual aim, ACT, which is acceptance commitment therapy. I had to think about it myself for a moment. Acceptance commitment therapy, spiritual aim, motivational interviewing. And some of those things you may already be aware of because they sound therapeutic, because guess what? They are. And more, they are expecting for chaplains to have clinical skills, more so even than pastoral skills. So if those types of things you're like, or if you're one of those people like, mental health stays in the therapy realm. I'm not a therapist, I'm a pastor. I've been around church long enough. Trust me, I've heard people say that. I'm a pastor, not a counselor. Well, if you have said any of those things, or if you feel like that in any kind of way, chaplaincy is not for you, because that is definitely where the industry is going. Because it is an industry. It is a profession, not just a ministry. Okay? And I don't like how I said that. Because if I feel like when I say not just a ministry, that makes it feel smaller, because it's not. I'm a church girl. I love the church. Okay. I am a member accountable to a local body. So I don't want to say not just a ministry. It's not only a ministry. And for some of your coworkers, it ain't going to be a ministry at all. It's going to be a position. You might want to go watch some of my other videos. I'm trying to help you. Okay. And number 5, this is another big one for me. And how can I say this nicely? Let my words be seasoned with salt. Let it be seasoned with grace. Let me say this, Holy Spirit, in a nice way. If you don't have pastoral gifts, this is not for you. Now, I know some of you who might not be in the church world, you might assume that every preacher who dons the Lord's pulpit on Sunday has pastoral gifts, but that's not the case. Some people are great orators. They have good preaching and teaching gifts. But if the only time you go to a hospital is when it's one of your loved ones or a big tither, you hate hospital visits, this is not going to be for you. I don't believe that I have been called to pastor. I don't believe that I have been called to preach. I'm a teacher. But I do have pastoral gifts that the Lord uses in this work. Meaning I can care for people well. I can walk alongside them well. I don't always have to have the answer. That's something that I'm working at. Okay. But if you're the type of person who you know you don't have that type of gifting, you will do more harm than good. Okay. So those are the top 5 things. And I'm saying, look, so what I'm not saying is that if you're a pastor, you can't be a good chaplain. I am not saying that at all. As a matter of fact, my father is in the hospital, and I asked to see the chaplain when we got there today, and he was amazing, and he's been a pastor for years. What I am saying, though, is don't think that this is a backup plan, that when you get tired of preaching or when you get tired of serving the pulpit, that you can transition to the hospital. You're going to have to be willing to sit, unlearn, and sit under supervision, just like everybody else, to do this. Do I believe that if you were a good pastor with good pastoral skills, do I believe this would be an easy transition for you? Yes. But what I am saying is that I know a lot of preachers who should never be anybody's chaplain because they barely a pastor. Okay? When you come here, I'm going to give you real talk. I'm going to try and stay girded up in the spirit when I do it. But I got to tell you the truth. I'm like, is there anything else on here? Yeah, I'm going to read this because I really want you to ask yourself these questions. So before you trade in your pulpit for a pager, ask yourself, can you walk in a room and be present with someone who maybe doesn't want prayer? Can you hold someone's hand and help them uncover their spiritual coping tools, even when they don't match your own? Can you deal with somebody who hates the church and still be a supportive, empathetic presence for that person? If any of those things make you itch, baby, this ministry ain't for you. And I'm saying that with love and also from experience. So, if you like this video, do me a favor. Like, subscribe, share it with somebody else who might be getting ready to take out a student loan because they saw on Duke's website that you can get an MDiv with a chaplaincy track for the low price of $100,000. This is a call just like anything else. So my advice to you is to seek the Lord, and he will answer. All right, friends, until next time, grace and peace.